Welcome to Calming the Chaos podcast, where we help you find peace in a chaotic world. I'm your host, Tracy Canella, licensed mental health counselor. Calming the Chaos provides self-help resources for people in crisis. It's not a substitute for counseling or psychotherapy. Thanks for tuning in. And now, let the chaos begin. And yes, the chaos has begun. Isn't this fun? Well, hello, everyone. I'm Tracy, and I'm here back with you for season 5 of Calming the Chaos podcast. It's been a fun summer and a break. And I always said, as long as people continue to contact me, I'll continue to calm the chaos with the help of some guests. So today, something that has actually really caused me chaos in the past and in the present is anger. And I get angry at a lot of different things, but specifically technology and the powers that be. And that actually rhymes. Fortunately, I've got Paul Zolman here with me today, and he has a unique method of using love and a spin on the love languages to help you not only manage your anger, understand it, but to find true love and to practice love as a solution to managing anger. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up Paul Zolman, who will help us calm our anger chaos. Welcome, Paul, to Calming the Chaos podcast.
Thank you, Tracy. A pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this because I think when we talked last, it was right after I had filed my third quarter taxes. And so I was in a little bit of a mood, right? An anger mood. And then I talked to you and you have this whole method. So why don't you explain who you are and a little bit about this method and how you got to develop it?
Sounds great. Thank you very much. I actually am a father of 8 children, and just when you find something that you like, you just keep doing it, and just has different results. And with those 8 children, just had a lot of opportunities to love and express love, and to do something different than what my family did from way back. And so it's just been a good journey for me. I grew up in an abusive childhood, and to turn that around, or the residual of the anger from that childhood, to overcome that, has been really kind of a lifelong challenge for me until I found something that worked. And so that's what I want to share today.
Yeah, so I think most people have heard, and I know a lot of my clients have heard of the 5 love languages. And so you have developed a kind of a unique spin on the love languages and kind of made it your own technique and method about being able to mindfully practice love, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's see. Can you tell us a little bit about how you developed the method?
Probably have to just back up just a little bit, and I want to tell you a little bit about my ancestry. I only tell you that because I think it plays a big part in my own transition. So back in the late 1800s, I had a grandfather that fathered 9 children in Indiana. And after that 9th child was born, his wife passed away. We don't know if it was from childbirth or just what it was, but he was very distraught at the time. And he thought that he would, because he was so distraught, he thought he'd sell the farm, he'd sell all the equipment, and just try a new circumstance, try new surroundings. When the auction happened and people came to buy the land and the equipment, he would offer them, "Would you like this child? Would you like this child? Would you like this child?" Until all the children were gone except for one. He took Benjamin with him, moved to Montana, where he found my grandmother. She was teaching school, found her, dated, and married, and had 10 more children, of which my father was number 6 of that second set of 10 children. When my father was 10 years old, my father was born in 1922. When my father was 10 years old, my grandfather, passed away. So here you have 19 children with abandonment issues, Tracy. That all by itself is cause for a little bit of anxiety, quite a bit of anger, or just depression, or just there's a lot of emotions that could go with that abandonment. But it's 1932 now, because my father was born in 1932. It's the depth of the depression when this grandfather passes away. So not only is there the abandonment issues, there's financial, economic issues as well. It was just a horrible time. Because of that, my father was only permitted or able to go through till 8th grade to get an 8th grade education. He never went past that. So he became a truck driver and was gone throughout the week. When he came home on the weekend, he did something that I really still admire to this very day. It was Friday. He'd always take my mother out Friday night. The children all knew. I'm number 10 of 11 children. We all knew that was mom and dad's night out, but we feared it as well. We really kind of feared the weekends as they came, and the reason we feared it is because as couples would they would meet and they'd say, "How was your week? How was your week?" And they just have that interaction back and forth. The venue was the problem. It was always the Maverick Bar, always over alcohol. And it was just, as my father became imbibed, he became very, very angry. And either we got the belt or we got a severe spanking on the weekend. That's why we dreaded the weekends. And there were some weekends that weren't that way because maybe we were better some weeks than other weeks, or maybe my mother was a little happier when she made that disclosure of how her week was. But it was just a time that was just really very difficult for me. I remember one time, especially that my rear end was black and blue for 3 weeks, and it's just it was severe in that way. I don't know if it came from his father or came from his childhood, but I don't think it's genetic. Obviously not genetic, but it's something that is passed down. Anger to me, or generationally, had been passed down. And the habits of anger, the vocabulary of anger, the words, the humor, just the nuances, everything about anger almost seemed like a culture all by itself. So with that, I decided I'm going to leave home at age 17, right after my junior year of high school. Moved in with my brother and stayed 6 months there. And then his company transferred him to California. So I was in California until I got out on my own. I decided, looking at how my brother was a father, and he was a really good father, but he still had these flashes as well. And when I say flashes, Tracy, I mean that what I noticed was happening is that I'd have an annoyance. I was just bothered by something somebody did. It's like, what's wrong with you? It was just that kind of attitude. I have this annoyance. Then it would stack. There'd be another annoyance and another annoyance and another annoyance and another annoyance, and then a flash. Just that anger would come out like that. And it became so bad that it almost would define me. Rather than the good that happened all the rest of the time, that those flashes almost began to define me. I began blaming my father and his example and those things that I learned in that childhood on my father. And I blamed him up until about age 35. Mm-hmm. One thing I found out about blame, Tracy, is that if you've got somebody to blame, you absolutely don't have to change. It's their fault.
Right. Yeah, you see a lot of blaming going on these days too, just in our society and our world, and a lot of anger for sure.
And then as I'm taking responsibility, I still am having some problems. In fact, one problem was about 6 or 7 years later that my family and I were reading the Bible in the morning, and my son, 3-year-old son, was sitting in my wife's lap, and all of a sudden he's just flailing with his arms and just whacks her glasses, and they fly like 10 feet. And I just lose it. I slap him. Mm. And I felt so bad that we finished reading, of course, but it's just such a complex situation. Here we are reading the Bible, trying to be good people, and then bad things happen. And it was just contradictory in that way.
Hmm.
I felt so bad that I called Health and Human Services on myself on my way to work.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't there because it was too early. And I left a message on the recording machine. So I said, I slapped my son. I wanted some help. I don't want to do that again. And so I had about a 40 or 50-minute commute. And so when I got to my office, I got a call from my wife, and I could not go home. I could not come see the kids until all this was resolved. So finally got it resolved. I actually was sentenced to 18 months probation and 1 year of anger management.
Hmm.
So when I'm going to, and that was their solution to this cry for help. So when I went to these anger management classes, the guys that were there did not volunteer like I did to be in that class, or did not volunteer. They had been caught. So one guy was caught. He had his wife by the neck, holding her up against the wall, her feet off the ground until she passed out. Another guy had beat his girlfriend so bad that she was in the hospital. These were the kind of guys that I was with in this anger management class. And what was just interesting to me is that they'd have us write things that happened during the week. We'd go there once a week, anything that happened during the week. And so it was almost like a confessional every time we went to this class. And the sad part about that is that some of the guys started getting dropped out of the class because in that confessional, the teachers had to report. Apparently, they had to report what else was happening, and additional charges were stacked on these people that were trying to learn anger management. It was a really hard class. What I found so beneficial from that class, though, was that there was this what they call the wheel of abuse. And in that wheel of abuse, I actually had felt like I'd been trained in about 5 or 6 different areas of abuse. I didn't know. I didn't know that was abuse. And so I was kind of at the point, a realization that came that I didn't know what I didn't know. But I started to learn. And as I learned what was abuse, I thought, well, what would be the opposite of that? Because if I knew what the opposite of that abuse was, then I could nurture and try to get that character trait rather than do the abuse. And so I like to compare it. The other day I was walking and I found a stick. Just it didn't have any bark on it. It's just this stick like this. And on one end of the stick, it's just nice and smooth, really nice. You can put your hand on it. It's a walking stick. But the other end of it, you can see it has sharp points where some branches may have been. And anyway, I call that the naughty side of the stick. So it's a naughty and nice stick. And I'm sure Santa Claus has a stick just like that. That's
Yeah.
how you get your presents at Christmas time, Kirsty.
Yeah, or a lump of coal in my stocking, which I usually get, right? So, wow. Well, so in other words, anger can be passed down intergenerationally, or so we think, right? And then behaviorally, even if we decide that we don't want any part of it, it can come up reflexively. And the blame, right? The blame can go on somebody else. And if you would put it on your dad in that moment, then you may not have ever called the services that you did, and then never had gotten into anger management, which I don't know. Did anger management do you any good, do you think?
So, as I was mentioning, that knowing that wheel of abuse really helped me understand that I grew up being trained how to be abusive. And I didn't even know that that's what was happening to me. I didn't even know that some of those things that I was doing were abusive. I never thought of it that way. So I think it's very helpful in that way to find out, as far as the stick goes, what side of the spectrum is it, on the naughty side of the spectrum or on the nice side of the stick? Then when I figure out the spectrum, and then you find out where you are on the spectrum, I didn't find out exactly where I was. I thought that after that anger management class that I was fine, everything was good, until it ended my first marriage, and then I was dating for a while, and then in this dating process, I found a woman that I wanted to take to Big Brother for Big Brother approval. Like I said, I'm number 10 of 11 children. You have to have, in that position, you got to have Big Brother approval. So first thing we did was I walked in there, and my sister-in-law pulled aside this woman and said the only emotion that the Zolman family learned growing up was anger. At first I denied it, still denied it, say and then it made me mad. And I thought, you know, at that point in time, I realized that I've got an opportunity to change this, change it for the whole course of any generations past me, that I can change that perception of the Zolman family. And so I started reading the color code and other books about love, trying to get out of this culture of anger that has the words and the vocabulary and just that whole culture, the nuances, the humor, everything that's in that culture. Try to get away from that, knowing that now I've been identified at the naughty end of the stick. Mm-hmm. I got to get over to that other side of the stick. So knowing the spectrum, knowing where you are on the spectrum, you've got three choices. You can stay the same, you can go more naughty, or you can go toward the nice end of the stick. And I just chose, I wanted to be on the nice end of the stick. So reading the color codes and then the 5 love languages, I like the principles of the 5 love languages. And the reason I like those principles is they seem to reconcile to my upbringing. We had an upbringing about the scriptures, about Jesus Christ, and they reconciled to the life of Jesus Christ. I wanted to do that. I wanted to try to be as good as that man was. So I settled on that, but I didn't get the principles of that. I didn't understand the application that Dr. Chapman was trying to do. To me, it was like guesswork, and I'm a really bad guesser. If I guess, Tracy, what love language you are, and I cater to that, we're going to be buddies. But I'm a bad guesser, and most likely it's not going to happen. It's really a big chance. And the other application was that, well, if I take this survey, then I know what my love language is. Well, what do I do with that? Advertise? Hello, Tracy, I'm Gifts. What do you have for me today? I mean, it's a little awkward, really awkward. That didn't work for me either. In fact, guessing and telling people what their love language is so they could cater to you didn't sound like love to me. Now, who am I to talk about what love is coming from where I was? But I know that didn't sound like love to me. It just did not. So I thought, you know what? My family got together as when we were younger and played games. So I thought maybe I can make it a game. So I contacted Dr. Chapman, giving him the benefit of the doubt, asking him if they'd license those icons that they had for each one of the love languages. And they're from 1992, rather dated. So they said no, they weren't doing that at the time. So I talked to a copyright intellectual property attorney here in town. He said that theory is not copyrightable, application is. So I made my own icons and then I made it into a game. And it's in the game, it's just a dice. You just roll the die every day. That's the love language you practice all day that day.
Right. Yeah. So the people who are familiar with the 5 love languages will typically say, my love language is physical touch, or my love language is acts of service, and my partner's love language is this. And so we're spending our lives trying to do that love language that the other partner needs. Right. And so we have been sort of raised with that. And your theory is we can be all of those plus a surprise, right?
Exactly. And it's not no longer, Tracy, is it a part-time job, because you're not with your significant other all day long. So that, to me, that's just part-time. What if you practice it like Dr. Chapman said, and then you go to work and you don't have to practice it at work because you're not with your significant others, and then you forget when you come home, and then just so confusing. This makes it more consistent. So it's to everyone. And I want to just insert here that I created this when I was single. I really didn't have a significant other. And so I needed to do it to everyone that I met, everyone possible, or every opportunity I saw to love in that genre for the day. And what it did for me, it gave me familiarity with all five love languages. Even after reading the five love language book 4 or 5 times, I couldn't tell you. If you offered $1 million, I still couldn't tell you what the five love languages were, because it didn't come inside me. Because of where I came from, it did not resonate inside me. So by giving it away, by finding some activities that would be appropriate with that genre, giving it away all day for a 30-day period, I found that I knew all five love languages to give it away. The best part about that is it increased my peripheral vision so that I could see it when it comes my way. So no longer, Tracy, is there that little whiny voice that said, well, I told you what my love language is. How come you're not doing it? And it's just, you don't have to go to that pity party anymore. You just don't have to go there. The only thing you have control over is giving it away and reacting when it comes to your way.
Yeah, that voice, it sounded quite like a banshee, I must say, Paul. It was well done. Yeah. So the concept is you get the die and you roll it every day. And so you have on your website some products that you are putting out there to help people, and it comes with the die. You can get the die by itself. You can get the die in a book and or the die in the journal. I actually ended up getting all three. So it's super cool that we're here today, because I can share with you some of my experiences and answer any questions that you might have. Because here I am thinking, I'm mad at the IRS and I'm justified and they are to blame, right? All these things you were saying. And it's probably passed on, because my dad used to have this book called How to Outsmart the IRS. And it was a coffee table book right there. And so it's probably passed down from generations, I would think, right? And so then I think, all right, so let's just give this a try for 30 days. And let me go ahead and show the audience here something I'm going to do. Yeah, so you see this dice tray here. Right. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do to demonstrate some of Paul's products. This product is the die that he was talking about, and it comes in this really super cool dome sort of thing. And it's not like you push it and it spins, so you have to take it out, but we've made sure to preserve the hearts because we thought that was pretty neat. So what you do is every day you take the die, which, we have the love language of words, gifts. This is touch, service. Did I put gifts? Yeah. And then the time. Here's time. Of course, we have surprise, which is someplace where it is a surprise. Oh, there it is. There's surprise. Surprise is there. So what you do is you just roll it. Oh, it's a surprise. I kind of like surprise because that gives you the opportunity to keep in mind all of the love languages you have. It's kind of like a catch-all. You can do whatever with that. And so let me just show you. Hi, here I am. This is the book that I used to use. Don't Get Mad, Get Even. And that was, this is put out by Bottom Line, and it's actually a very good book. But here's Paul's books. Here is his book called A Roll of Love.
The book is more about a lot of the experiences that I've had, and I've had several experiences since that time, but it's a lot of people that have tested the products, and those stories are included there. But it's also about some of the other roles that are included in love. I've included the role of authenticity. I included the role of observation, things that are also help compound that love so that it makes it a whole lot more meaningful. When you're rolling the die, you're watching for people to light up. When they light up, you just take note that that's possibly their primary love language. And it may be different than what they took on the survey. As Tracy had mentioned, people take the survey, they find out what their primary love language is. In fact, I've had several people within the community I'm in say that they thought they were service. So the husband is just washing the car, doing the dishes, vacuuming the floors, doing all this, and she's not lighting up. But when he rolled the die and it was words that day, she started lighting up like she never had before. And it was just very interesting that the accuracy of the die is a whole lot more accurate, I think, than any survey. You can skew any survey, but you can't really skew and a feeling or a spontaneous something spontaneous that comes out of someone from something kind that comes to them. That's what the book's about.
Great. Thank you for letting us know. And then you also provide a journal, which is the Roll of Love journal. And this journal has been interesting to be able to keep track of. So every day, my husband and I both have rolled the die. And so he takes one page and I take another. Let's get to a blank page here. Blank page is going to have, you're going to have the date, and then you mark what you roll. And then you write down what your opportunities are, and then some thoughts and results. So we've been doing, since these are on both 2 pages, we've been doing, him and I both have been doing it probably since, let's look at the date. The date we started was the 8th of August. Today is the 18th. We had a little bit of a chaotic morning today, so we didn't roll, but we might roll later. But what we do is keep in mind what our love language is for the day, and we just do it. And it's really super neat to be able to have that intention to practice whatever love language comes up for us on the die and roll it. And I don't know if I would say that I have had a significant change yet, but I did notice that today, when we were going to have our semi-annual vet visit. So we have this big cat who has a thyroid problem, and he's big and he's got claws and he likes to bite. So it's always a big hassle getting him to the vet. I'll tell you, this morning went as smooth as it's never gone that smooth, getting him into the cat carrier and off to the vet. We didn't snap at each other. Usually it's me that does the snapping. No snapping was done today, and even the cat didn't snap. So I don't know. Maybe it is because of the die, and we've been rolling it. We've been keeping track in the journal and everything like that. But I have to say, I did lose my temper with a colleague the other day, but I did pretty much apologize afterwards, and we worked it out. So anybody who does business with me, they better beware, because I do have a bit of a temper if somebody gets in the way of me doing business. And so colleagues are people who get on my nerves sometimes, and I get a little snippy. So this time I made a repair and I said, I probably shouldn't have said that to you in that way, and I'm sorry.
Perfect. That's great. I have a great story for you, Tracy, too. And I forgot to tell it to you earlier, but I recalled it, that it's about the IRS or for me, it was the Sales Tax Commission here in the state where I'm at. They sent me a letter a couple months ago that said I owed $2,500. I said, I don't think so. And so when I called them, they answer, and then the person says their name. So she says their name, and it says, could you spell that for me? She said, Katya. And to me, that sounded like Katya. And I said, I just offhanded, I just sometimes make offhanded comments. I said, you have a perfect name for where you work. Who else would thought that would be a perfect place to work? No one had ever said that to her or dared say it to her. And she just laughed hysterically and immediately just went to work to zero out that $2,500. It was for a corporation that was closed. So they have a policy that even if they're a closed corporation, if you don't report, they automatically throw that fine out there. So she zeroed out the corporation. Perfect. And it's just one of those things that just a little humor, just a little kindness gets you a whole lot farther than what anger will. Anger will the horns will come out on the head, and just those type of things. Just it works better. A little bit of kindness is like the sugar. It just makes the medicine go down a little bit better.
That is so funny because when you said Katya, I was thinking the same thing. And I also thought about Rich and Rob, who work in the bank. And I always thought those were perfect names for people who are bankers or worked in a bank, Rich and Rob. And so let's take a quick trip over to your website real quick here. And this is a really super cool website here. If you can
Thank you.
see it all right. Yeah, and this is an interesting, so we've got the Roll of Love book, and usually it's like kind of streaming across, like it's in motion usually, but here's the book and the die, and here are all the combinations of things that you can purchase if you'd like. Anything you want to say about your website or about your products and services, Paul?
Developing products, and soon we'll have an app that you can put on your phone, and then after that we're going to have some workshops, and we're just going to keep adding some more products to it. I really like the idea of actually putting the die and the journal in a school system, and probably grades. I'm talking about grades K through 6, because I think that the young children, they stay in the same classroom. There's more opportunity to show them how to be accountable for their own actions. When children learn how to be accountable for their own actions, they'll be a lot better people. Then they'll be just be responsible at a younger age. Remember in my story that I didn't realize that I was accountable for my own actions until like age 35. If we can get that back down to the grade school level, that they're accountable for their own actions, it'll tamp down the misbehaving, but it also might eliminate a lot of the bullying that might go on. If the class, as a class, rolled the die first thing in the morning, a couple seconds, maybe a minute at the maximum of the day of the teacher. I know they're already busy and teaching what they're teaching, but in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the day, the kids have been there all day. They're antsy. They know the bell's going to ring, and it's just kind of a non-productive time. That's the time you pull out the journal page and have each child write on that journal page what the class they rolled as a class that day, what opportunities they saw to love in that way that day, then what did they do about those opportunities. Just think of it this way, Tracy. If you had a journal, a love journal from your first grade class or your second grade class, your third grade class, that is something that you would treasure right now at this time. And if you have children, you probably share that with your children to say, this is opportunities I saw to love as a first grader.
Mm.
This is what I did about that.
Yeah, and I would like to know who would have written in his love journal or her love journal who smashed into my Woody Woodpecker lunchbox and broke my thermos when I was in second grade. I would like to be able to read through their journal and see what their process is. So yes, very good reasons for having the die and journal pages in the school systems. For sure. So please give Paul's website a look and check out his products and services, and really a lot of really cool things. It's more like setting an intention for the day, and then you can practice it. Like I noticed I was practicing it on my cats, spending quality time with my cats. And I kind of roll my eyes because it's like, I don't have time to spend quality time, but it does make you look for those opportunities to do those things. It does make you feel a bit better when you have better words come out of your mouth, more quality time spent. And gifts. I don't think I've gotten that one yet, but I've gotten physical touch. It was a day when I was going to be spending a whole day plus extra time with clients. And I said, oh, this is going to be easy. I don't get to touch my clients. So that was pretty easy. But when I came home, I petted my cats and I hugged my husband and all that other stuff that you're supposed to do. And it was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear that it's working well for you, Tracy.
Yeah. And so thanks for introducing me to that. Do you have any closing thoughts or comments that you want to make? It's been great having you on the show.
Thank you very much. Just one closing comment that, I like to compare life to kind of a magnifying glass. When you have a magnifying glass, you're enlarging things. If we use a magnifying glass to enlarge the faults of others or the weaknesses of others, that's a boomerang. That's coming right back at you. And do you want people to look at your own faults? Most people don't. So the better idea is to focus on what's right about people. It's maybe something that they've never even recognized themselves, and it just really makes their day. That's if we start being kind of a love starter, is what I like to call it. If we send out love and start love, it's gonna they're gonna spread that around to people that they have influence over. And then those people are gonna spread it to the people they have influence over. It has a calming effect. That's what we
Yeah.
need. We world doesn't need any more critics. We need more love starters sending it out.
Yeah, and this isn't to be cheesy or anything because I use the word love quite easily, and I know some people reserve it for special occasions, but love is a universal thing that happens throughout communities, and just that unconditional positive regard that we have for other humankind
Mhm.
comes up. And so some people will kind of roll their eyes at me when I say, use the concept of love or I love you, and I throw it around pretty loosely. And yet, it can have benefits far
Absolutely.
beyond what you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good on you, Tracy. Good way to go.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and so I wanted to, in closing, ask you, when we talked before, you said something about the word namaste. I love using that word, but I didn't know what the true meaning of namaste is, and you told me. I always thought it was a namaste, have a nice day, but you said something different. So what is it that namaste actually means so that we can end on a really positive note here?
So I've found out that the meaning of namaste from the Tibetan monks was the God in me sees the God in you, or said another way, the divine in me sees the divine in you. And I just think that that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to look for those positive things in people and focus on that.
Great. Yes. Well, namaste, Paul. Thank you for being on Calming the Chaos today.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks for listening to Calming the Chaos podcast. If you found this podcast interesting or helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. You can also go to www.calmingthechaospodcast.com to listen to all Calming the Chaos podcast episodes. I look forward to sharing my next podcast episode with you. In the meantime, take care. Howl at the moon or something like that.